There is a structural financial reality operating quietly in the background of your life. It's entirely designed to extract the wealth you are spending a literal lifetime to build. Today, in this explainer, we are pulling back the curtain on a labyrinth that most hardworking Americans literally never see coming until it's way too late. You're not broke because you spend too much, but what if the system was never designed for you to win? You know the drill. You've been told your whole life to work hard, max out your 401k, live way below your means, and defer all your gratification until later. You played by the rules. But what if those rules were mathematically engineered to trap you? What if the conventional wisdom of personal finance is actually just a blueprint for keeping you on the treadmill, oversaving, and ultimately surrendering your hard-earned capital right back to the system? Welcome to USA Rift. If you want to see the hidden gears of the economy and understand how your money is really moving, you are absolutely in the right place. Subscribe to the channel right now, like this explainer, and comment down below on what you thought of these revelations. And please support the channel by becoming a channel member. Seriously, your membership is what allows us to keep digging deep and exposing the truth behind this financial curtain. So let's pull back that curtain. Section 1. The Great Retirement Illusion. Our first major revelation begins with the absolute foundation of the American financial dream. See, the entire financial industry operates on a highly calculated myth. It's this idea that you're going to need an ever-increasing massive six-figure income to just survive your later years. The financial software your advisor uses, it literally assumes your spending will go up in a straight, linear line forever. It projects a climb of roughly 3% every single year just to account for inflation. But the empirical reality, and we're talking about data backed by millions of actual transaction points from massive institutions like JP Morgan and Kitz's, proves this is entirely false. In the real world, household consumption aggressively declines by 30% between ages 60 and 85. It's not a straight line up, it's a massive drop. So you got to ask yourself, why does the industry push this linear illusion? Well, it's mathematical self-interest. Think about it. If you believe you need millions more than you actually do, what are you going to do? You're going to keep your money invested in their high-fee vehicles for decades longer. They accumulate assets under management. They're literally compounding their own wealth off your manufactured fear of running out of money, all while you sacrifice the best years of your life, oversaving for a level of consumption you will absolutely never reach. Section 2. The Midlife Debt Trap. But here's the thing. The extraction doesn't just begin at age 65. The system catches you when you are most vulnerable, right in the exact middle of your life, 48%. I want to let that massive number just sit with you for a moment. Nearly half, almost 50% of all retirement plan participants in the United States are carrying revolving credit card debt straight into their later years. We are not talking about people living in absolute poverty here. These are middle-class and upper-middle-class earners who look incredibly wealthy on the outside. They're driving leased cars, they're living in beautiful suburban homes, but behind closed doors, they are secretly drowning. They are dutifully saving for retirement in one account, maybe earning a fragile 7 or 8% if the market is good, while simultaneously bleeding out at 24% compounding interest on their credit cards in another account. This isn't just some simple budgeting mistake. It is a structural feature of modern consumption, and it's designed to mathematically neutralize your net worth. Let's break down the actual anatomy of this debt trap, because it fundamentally breaks your financial future. This debt peaks between ages 40 and 55. Those are your absolute prime earning years. And the mathematical consequence? It reduces your total retirement readiness by a staggering 40%. It intercepts your wealth accumulation at the exact moment when the magic of compounding is supposed to accelerate. Consider the exact numbers here. Granular data shows us that a mere 1%, just 1%, increase in retirement contributions starting at age 25 could generate an additional $84,000 in compounding capital by the time you retire. To put that into perspective for you, that single percentage point is enough to completely fund 9 full years of average Medicare expenses in retirement. But the debt trap? It prevents that 1% from ever being invested in the first place. It systematically robs your future security just to fund your immediate midlife consumption. And the result? It keeps you locked in the labor force way, way longer than you ever intended. Section 3. The Real Cost of Aging. So what actually happens when you finally break free and retire? We need to look closely at how real people actually behave with their capital when they age, because it is shockingly contrary to what that financial software predicts. Take a look at this. This is the empirical spending smile. It's derived from the actual hard transaction data of over 600,000 households. Notice how high spending is early on? These are what wealth managers call the go-go years. In your early 60s, you're traveling, you're dining out, buying apparel, spending aggressively because, well, you finally have the time to do it. But watch the dramatic collapse as individuals enter their 70s and 80s, the slow go and no-go years. Discretionary spending essentially vanishes. It's just a visceral reality of aging. The desire and, honestly, the physical energy to consume expensive experiences naturally plummets. The only expenditures that truly rise are healthcare and charitable gifts. The system wants you terrified of running out of money at age 85, hoarding all your capital, when in reality, your natural consumption will have already dropped by a third. But how you spend that shrinking pie is highly psychological, and it entirely dictates your vulnerability to the system. Cluster analysis actually found that retirees aren't just one big monolith. 39% are what data scientists call foodies. They pour 28% of their income into big box retail and restaurants. Their baseline spending is relatively low, but they are highly susceptible to sudden spikes in consumer goods inflation. If grocery and restaurant prices suddenly spike by 8%, their monthly budget is immediately fractured. Contrast that with the homebodies. They make up 29% of retirees. Now they pour a massive 54% of their wealth into housing. We're talking mortgages, property taxes, renovations. The homebody feels incredibly safe in their castle. But what happens when local property taxes double in a rapidly gentrifying area over 10 years? They are trapped in an illiquid asset, and they're forced to drain their liquid reserves just to stay in their own home. The system extracts wealth differently from you depending entirely on your specific behavioral habits. And the transition into retirement itself, it is pure chaos. 60% of new retirees experience massive annual spending shifts of 20% or more in their first 3 years. We're talking unexpected home repairs, sudden health events, maybe having to help out an adult child, or finally taking those really expensive bucket list trips. This early volatility is exactly where the system often strikes the absolute hardest. If you hit a 20% spending shock precisely during a 15% market downturn in year one of your retirement, you trigger what wealth managers call sequence of returns risk. By being forced to sell off your assets at a steep loss just to cover these sudden life events, you mathematically ensure your portfolio cannot ever recover when the market eventually bounces back. It is a mathematical certainty that this combination will cause irreversible damage to your capital base, often guaranteeing full portfolio failure by year 15. The system literally relies on this early chaos to permanently erode your wealth. Section 4. The Medicare Wealth Penalty. Now we are entering the government's hidden mechanisms. This is where the system aggressively penalizes the very people who successfully saved and played by the rules. We are talking about IRMA, the income-related monthly adjustment amount. You need to think of this as a classified weapon aimed directly at your wealth. It is a structural, escalating surcharge that is silently added to your Medicare Part B and Part D premiums. And you know the most dangerous part of this weapon? It uses an inescapable 2-year look-back period. The IRS uses your modified adjusted gross income from exactly 2 years prior to calculate your penalty. This means a totally logical financial decision you make in 2024, maybe you sell a property at age 63 to downsize or you take a one-time capital gain, will secretly dictate your mandatory government penalties when you finally enroll in Medicare at age 65. You are literally being punished in the future for a perfectly logical decision you made in the past. $1 single. I really want to let that sit with you in complete silence for a second. If your modified adjusted gross income crosses the invisible government threshold by exactly $1, you do not pay a proportional tax. No, you fall straight off a cliff. You trigger a catastrophic financial penalty that absolutely cannot be undone. The absolute precision of these 2026 penalty tiers is honestly terrifying. Let's look at the math here. If you are married and your joint income is $218,000, you are in the safe zone. You pay zero in surcharges. But let's say you realize a tiny capital gain or take an extra withdrawal for a minor home repair and your income hits $218,001. That single dollar instantly extracts $2,297 from your household. Hit the Tier 2 cliff, the system takes $5,772 from you every single year. And remember, this is absolutely crucial. These penalties are paid in post-tax dollars. You have to earn significantly more than $5,000 just to clear enough cash to actually pay the surcharge. It is a structural, inescapable extraction of thousands of dollars for the most minor of income infractions. But I'll tell you, nothing is more devastating, more deeply cynical than the widow trap. Imagine a married couple safely under the limit. Suddenly, tragically, a spouse passes away. The grieving survivor inherits the exact same income-generating assets. Their income drops slightly to $171,000. But because their tax status automatically changes to single, the income thresholds are instantly cut in half. At their absolute most vulnerable moment, the system thrusts them into single Tier 2. Not only are they dealing with the emotional and administrative nightmare of losing a life partner, but months later they receive a letter in the mail slapping them with a sudden $2,886 annual penalty. The system structurally punishes the surviving spouse just for surviving. It's brutal. Section 5. The Silent Tax Torpedo. This structural trap specifically targets conventional savers. It creates an inescapable corner for the mass affluent. See, the ultra-rich, they don't worry about this stuff. Only 7 to 15% of their income even comes from standard wages or 401k accounts. But the middling millionaire, someone with $1 to $3 million who diligently maximize their tax-deferred 401k their entire life, they are caught. When they hit their 70s, the government steps in and forces them to take required minimum distributions, or RMDs. This artificial mandatory income spike violently pushes them into higher tax brackets. Simultaneously, this exact same income spike instantly causes up to 85% of their Social Security benefits to become fully taxable. And because their income has surged, it triggers the exact Medicare IRRMA surcharges we just went over. The required minimum distribution is literally the match that ignites a simultaneous compounded blast to your nest egg. This is what we call the silent tax torpedo. Now, the conventional wisdom you've been taught by mainstream financial media is to drain your taxable accounts first, then your tax-deferred, and finally your Roth. Sounds logical, right? It feels safe. But it is mathematically flawed, and it essentially guarantees a massive future tax bill. Fidelity's empirical research proves this. They found that draining accounts one by one creates a massive mid-retirement tax bump precisely when those required minimum distributions kick in. The proportional truth is entirely different. You must blend your withdrawals from different tax buckets simultaneously. By taking a specific percentage from taxable, tax-deferred, and tax-free accounts every single year, you flatten your lifetime tax curve. This proportional withdrawal strategy stabilizes your tax bill. It completely avoids those artificial income spikes, and it actively starves the tax torpedo of the fuel it needs to destroy your capital. Section 6. Outsmarting the structural system. So, the big question. How do we actually fight back? Well, consider these upcoming strategies the exact blueprints for a high-stakes financial heist to reclaim your own wealth. This is the Charles Schwab diffusal sequence. Let's walk through it with absolute precision. Step 1. You exhaust your required minimum distributions first. Do this simply to satisfy the IRS and avoid their massive failure to withdraw penalties. Step 2. Harvest the interest and dividends generated naturally by your taxable accounts, leaving the principal entirely alone to continue growing. Step 3. Liquidate your maturing bonds and certificates of deposit, which generally return your principal completely tax-free. Step 4. Deliberately draw from tax-deferred or taxable assets while actively managing and harvesting capital losses to perfectly offset your gains. This neutralizes the tax hit. And Step 5. You touch your Roth accounts absolutely last. You preserve that tax-free compounding engine and legacy as your ultimate impenetrable shield against the system. To really fight back, the wealthy use advanced mitigation tactics to manipulate the system's own rules against itself. For instance, they meticulously calculate their exact IMRA room. This means they know exactly how many dollars they can safely convert from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA without crossing that catastrophic $1 Medicare penalty cliff. They execute these massive conversions early, specifically in the retirement gap. That's that crucial window between stopping work and age 63. Doing this completely avoids the 2-year Medicare look-back before it even begins. And if they do get hit with an unfair surcharge due to a sudden life-changing event, like retirement or divorce, they don't just roll over and pay it. They immediately file Form SSA 44 to aggressively appeal and crush the penalty. And crucially, high-net-worth individuals often claim Social Security early, at age 62. Why would they do that? Because taking the government's money as early as possible allows their private tax-advantaged portfolios to continue compounding completely untouched. By shielding their private capital, they mathematically push their true break-even wealth age way out to 88 or beyond. It is absolute mathematical defense. The system is a labyrinth designed to confuse, extract, and deplete the wealth you spent a lifetime building. Let that sink in. Retirement is not some passive spreadsheet where you just plug in a 4% rule and go play golf for 20 years. It is an active, ongoing, mathematical defense of your capital against an entity that has programmed the code specifically to drain you. And the worst part, most people will literally never realize it. They will just keep wondering why their balances are shrinking so much faster than they planned. Please, don't be one of them. If this explainer opened your eyes to how the machine really works, subscribe to USA Rift right now. Like this explainer, comment your thoughts down below and become a channel member to support this kind of deep dive research. The system only wins if you stay in the dark. We'll see you in the next one.